So the main concerns in regards to raw versus cooked foods are vitamin content, palatability, as well as digestion, which those are kind of tied in together. So vitamins do denature when heated and, well, even when exposed to oxygen and water in a lot of cases. More specifically, vitamin A, vitamin C, and vitamin B. The other vitamins I haven't honestly found a lot of research on, but since higher quality animal foods, specifically raw or fermented ones, tend to have higher vitamin contents than others, so there's definitely a lot of research that hasn't been touched in that area. I think the best analogy to make is the one I made in my grass-fed versus grain-fed video, where at the end of the day, as long as you're getting the checklist of vitamins in your diet, you shouldn't really be concerned. So whether you're having, half a pound of raw bone marrow, a quarter pound of elk liver, and half a pound of raw meat versus someone who's eating 2 pounds of ground beef that's well done, and a vitamin, maybe like a cod liver oil supplement and a vitamin K supplement, you're still achieving the goal of nutrient density. So yeah, it's definitely a safe bet to say that raw liver has more vitamin C than cooked liver, same with raw flesh versus cooked flesh, but it's more important that you're getting those foods, organ meats, high quality fats in your diet, because regardless of how much raw muscle meat you eat, it's not going to have a high enough fat content, and especially not enough vitamin content in that fat. And I mean, the only scenario would be like if you're consuming beef belly that is like 70 to 80% fat and it's high quality, which we all know most people don't have access to that. So if you mostly raw meat, that's great. Try incorporating some other foods, liver, high quality fats into your diet. Even if, honestly, sometimes dairy like cheeses are the best option to get a high vitamin content. If you follow a mostly cooked food diet, same thing. You can incorporate other cooked foods, especially fish, as well as supplementing with maybe cod liver oil, vitamin K supplements, or just, as I've said time and time again, get a variety of high quality fats in your diet and you won't have to worry about vitamin content. And fatty wild caught fish tend to be the safest bet because it's a definite. You don't know what quality of pasture that cow was on, how long that fat has been sitting in the freezer, things like that. So palatability and digestion tie in together because the amount of food you eat dictates how well your body is going to digest. Obviously, someone who eats, let's say I eat a 3-pound ribeye heavily salted once every 3 days versus a pound of unseasoned ribeye every day for 3 days. There's going to be a big difference in the amount of energy spent in digestion, how many times I'm going to have to use the bathroom, how well I'm going to sleep. So if those factors are things that affect you, I mean, if you sleep like a brick anyway and you have no digestive issues eating large amounts of food, by all means. But I have those specific problems. So raw unsalted meat, lowest satiety, which means I actually have a separate video on food palatability if you guys want more details, but it goes raw unseasoned meat, cooked unseasoned meat, salted raw meat, salted cooked meat, and then like heavily seasoned, start adding stuff like garlic, balsamic vinegar. You just consume very large amounts of those foods. And that's the difference between eating half a pound of raw ribeye to 3 pounds of ribeye. So if you want to go by your natural appetite and kind of what your digestive system is actually meant to handle, you're better off not seasoning your foods at all and consuming them raw. So one disclaimer I will say is I have a very poor sense of smell and a very poor palate. So the angle I'm coming from here might be deceptive because when I don't salt my food, I don't enjoy it as much. I really don't like it. But I've read stories and accounts of people who stopped salting their food and then they actually didn't really enjoy salt on their food anymore. So I might have like a personal problem anecdotally that ties into that, which makes it so I personally eat less unseasoned food. There might be people out there who stop seasoning their meat and just eat the same amount of it. I don't know. This is where the angle that I am coming from, and I'm assuming it's going to be true, but it might not be. I mean, in the case of salt versus no salt, I'm sure there's a difference initially, but after a period of weeks to months is where you would notice whether or not you would enjoy it more or not. So when you cook food, your body digests it quicker and expels more waste. That leads me to believe that there's either, well, there is less nutrients in it, and your body can't utilize it as much because it digests, although it digests quicker, that's not necessarily a good thing, because would you rather digest a small amount of raw food slowly, which is what happens, or a large amount of cooked food quickly? The vitamin and mineral content at the end of the day is going to be greater, if not the same, in the raw food, but it's just going to be much less bulk and much less calories. So it becomes a question of, and I have to experiment this myself, you know, and it's been something I really should have done already. On a completely raw food diet, yeah, your caloric requirement is drastically reduced, and I've experienced this in the past. I just haven't experienced it outside of like a bodybuilding diet, because I used to spend 2 hours in the gym, so even though I was eating raw meat and fat, it was a bit skewed in my caloric intake. So what I'm going to do by experimenting with, in the next few weeks, my salmon roe diet and completely raw and seasoned diets that I'm going to do over the next few months, I'm going to see if human metabolic function is dictated by vitamin and mineral intake as opposed to caloric intake. Because if I'm consuming 1,000 calories a day of salmon roe for months, and I don't need to consume any more calories than that, then what does that say about, you know, current nutrition? That's what I'm hoping to find out in the next few months. So hopefully that answers a bunch of questions for you guys. But as always, you know, a lot of my videos tend to tie into each other. So you know, my more recent video, the grain-fed versus grass-fed, as well as the food palatability video, and I'm sure I've touched on various things in relation to this in my other videos as well. So if you're lacking some information, of course, you know, go to those videos as a resource, and then just figure out things you want to Google and kind of form your own opinions and ideas about well, what to do with your own diet.